Hey guys, I'm Stefan Kesting from grapplers.com. Let's go down the list here. Rob Bernacki from Island Top Team, Matt Kwan from On Guard BJJ, and Rory Van Vliet, also from Island Top Team. Today we're here to talk about passing the guard of somebody who's a really good leg locker, which is, a lot of people get so scared, like knowing that the guy's a good leg locker, they're afraid to engage. So you see this kind of dance of death. So who better to tell you how to pass the guard of a leg locker than a really good leg locker?
Absolutely.
Hence you.
Thank you for the compliment. And fortunately, we got a few leg lockers here, so I'm going to be demonstrating how you can enter the guard, pass the guard from the outside, pass the guard from, mostly you're going to see some variation of the butterfly guard and elevations and things like that, but there are going to be other situations where leg entanglements are becoming a problem and we can still pass the guard, generally accessing levers and making our opponent's life miserable on the bottom, not giving him any credit for the fact that he's a leg locker, and understanding, based on some of the principles we've discussed in previous volumes, how to keep ourselves safe if we do get entangled, which is going to hopefully allow us to be a little bit more bold in our passing and get our opponent into a position where we can finish him without engaging in a leg battle. We're going to begin our passing movements with how to get to our feet when we find ourselves in the standard ashigurami, the most common leg entanglement. First thing I'm going to do is what we call put on the boot, which is extending my toes up, arching them, trying to drive my heel to the mat, making my legs structurally as strong as possible, locking my knee in place. This is going to allow me to start to turn, build my base, and find a grip on the sole of his foot. Once I have this grip, this is the only real way to control someone's foot with my hand. Any other grip is temporary. This one I can maintain for quite a while. I'm going to use my left hand as a post, keeping good posture, keeping good base, and keeping my legs strong, digging my heel into the mat, hiding it at the same time. I'm going to start to stand up. I'm going to strip that foot off. Once I'm here, I should be able to initiate passing, or at the very least, hang out on top, put my butt down, and try to negate the control that my partner has so that I can start to extract my foot and move into some guard passing sequences that are more in my favor outside of the leg entanglement realm. So one more time, let's get a slightly different angle so you can see how I'm getting up into base. Again, I find myself in the leg entanglement. I'm going to try to turn as quickly as I can, put on that boot, arch my toes. It's like I'm trying to tickle the back of Matt's shoulder or armpit with my toes. Grab around the bunion, the alleged bunion, swing out with my base on my left foot, live toes, drive, extend this arm away, and now I'm going to cut in and try to step back. If he's got a good grip, ankle lock style, I won't be able to step out, but at least I've negated the attack. I can hang out on top, try to crunch him forward. If I can affect his posture, I may now be able to step out into the leg drag and continue passing. There's a lot of variations on what becomes possible. The important takeaway here is how to get up, denying the immediate control by stripping the foot off the hip, getting up into good base, and standing to shut down the single leg X. You can't immediately be heel hooked. You can't immediately be swept. And again, worst case scenario, if you could go on your back again, please, Matt. Worst case scenario, you're going to be standing like this and not in any immediate danger because you're in base, you're in posture, you're in structure. And that's a hell of a lot better than being on the bottom fighting off leg locks. Okay, our next passing concept, sequence, movement is going to be what we call floating leg pummeling. This is going to happen against the butterfly guard. If you have the opportunity, there's a couple matches on YouTube that you can find between Tanquinho and Eddie Cummings. Certainly there's one from Polaris where you see Tanquinho employ a lot of leg pummeling against the butterfly guard to stay out of leg entanglements. This is a really powerful tool. It's something that you should be doing anyway just to develop good dexterity, even if you're not working against a leg locker. If you're working against somebody who does employ the butterfly guard, this is going to be something that you're going to have in your arsenal.
Butterfly guard.
Yeah, anything that shuts down the butterfly guard is generally pretty applicable to shutting down leg lock entries. So assuming that you got your double underhooks, then you're going to elevate me. So once somebody elevates you, I'm going to have to put my hands on the mat, but I have to be careful how I do it. If I flare them out too wide, Stefan's going to be able to duck behind me and take my back. All right, that's almost as bad for me as getting leg locked. So I want to make sure that I keep my elbows in just enough as I get elevated to keep my base, and I'm actually going to try to drive my shoulder in underneath Stefan's jaw, so I'm creating a bit of a posture break with my head and my shoulder breaking his alignment a little bit. My goal is to pummel my foot on top of his instep. So either in this direction or in this direction. The more leg dexterity you have with this, the better. Right? The longer your legs are and the shorter your opponent's legs are, the harder this is to do. So we don't just rely on this motion. If I get this, I'm fine. I can now land, and because I've got the end of the lever controlled, I can move into my passing based on that. However, if you elevate me again, occasionally, if you can bring your knees a little closer to your chest, Stefan, so your feet are, yeah, there we go. I may not be able, I may miss. I may not get this. Because you and I are roughly the same height, I feel like I'd be pretty reliable with this. But if I can't get this, I'm going to start shifting my hips side to side so that I can step out and bring my hip in front of your knee, driving you across and potentially moving into the leg drag or some kind of smash pass. So let's turn a little bit, maybe with your head this way. There we go.
So you're doing a mid-air breakdance spin.
Exactly. I'm breaking my hips to one side. So again, you'd elevate me. I would leg pummel once or twice, realize that I couldn't do it, shift to one side, sometimes touching the mat, sometimes not. But as I shift, I'm now going to cut my hip to this side using my right hip to drive this lever across. Again, I would either move into a smash type pass or I would step back into side control from this alignment. All right, our next passing situation is going to be a leg drag where our opponent is attempting to pull us into the outside ashy. We're going to windshield wiper in response. So if I've managed to get myself to the leg drag position, as we discussed earlier, I want to be flaring my leg out to make it difficult for him to just grab my foot and pull it through. But occasionally, people are either going to be skilled enough, good enough with their timing that they're going to have the opportunity to pull your leg through. Anytime I feel this happening, if I'm flaring my leg out and I feel that my leg's about to go, I'm immediately going to windshield wiper. It's important that we windshield wiper correctly, that we're not doing this as a response after the fact. Once my leg actually goes through, this is not going to be fast enough. He's not going to leave his legs apart. He's going to connect his feet right away. I'm going to windshield wiper right into a heel hook or a knee bar. So you have to recognize that someone's pulling on your leg, and then when you feel like, uh-oh, it's about to happen, bring your windshield wiper through, and you're going to start to pull on the end of the lever. I want to make sure that my foot, let's just turn all the way around. Once I've windshield wipered through, I want to make sure that I'm driving against this, basically making him do the splits. I can now move back into a guard pass on this side, or I can bring my knee through, move around to this side, attempt to pass or attack the back. So again, I've found myself in the leg drag. My partner is attempting to free my leg. If I wait until this comes across and I attempt to go now, it's going to be too late. I'm going to get heel hooked or knee barred. So I have to implement that placeholder system concept. Right now, the lever to his hip is under my control in the leg drag. As he reaches for that lever, I'm going to replace that staple against his leg with another one, try to bring my foot in behind, and start leaning backwards. I have two options here. I can attempt to pursue the pass by bringing my knee through, closing my elbow against his hip, moving back into a leg drag style, transfer to either a back attack or a side control. Or, again, we've mentioned this idea of leg lock or bust, or maybe being a Homer Simpson with his hands stuck in the vending machines. If you're dealing with somebody where you've stepped through and they're still insisting on the leg lock, let's just turn this way a little bit more. One thing that's very helpful here is reaching over, getting your guillotine grip, and finishing from here. I guess somebody who's being a bit greedy, but again, that's based on a misunderstanding of how jiu-jitsu should go. He should recognize that once he goes to pull my leg through and I windshield wiper across, he should recognize that he's beat and be trying to return to a guard alignment. So I'm going to keep my arm on him, step my knee out, and try to stay heavy and move into a passing situation from here. All right, our next passing sequence is going to be what we call a 1-2-3 hip switch against a standard ashi entry that doesn't involve an elevation from the butterfly guard. It involves someone trying to slide their leg directly through. So if I can get Matt to demonstrate the entry, he's going to grab my knee, and on that same side, this leg is going to go straight, and he's going to pull me towards him and then put me into the single leg X standard ashi. So if we go back, this is going to afford me an opportunity to make my knee and hip heavy. Right? As he grabs my leg and starts to slide in, I'm going to shift my base to this side. So that's my first hip switch. I'm shifting my base this way, and I'm trying to kick myself in the butt to deny him control of the lever and to block his ability to get to my hip. So I've made my first hip switch. I'm now going to turn my hip back the other way, and then my third hip switch is going to bring me into the pass. So let's try to go through that a little bit smoother. So Matt's going to begin the entry. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and when you do it properly, it looks really smooth, kicking your partner's legs to the side. Let's get a different angle on it. Again, he's pulling me in. I drop, cut my hips, and I end up passing in one smooth motion. Okay, let's get one more in at a different angle, a little bit slower. As Matt starts to pull me in, I want to drive into him. Ideally, I'm going to get my shoulder across his face, creating some pressure. You can see I'm already using my foot to stop him. I'll be kicking myself in the butt as I go to do this. Matt's left knee is going to be driving up behind my butt. It's trying to elevate me this way. So I want to bring my hip to this side to kill that entry. Once I've made that first hip switch and my heel is behind my butt, I'm going to make my second hip switch, which is going to involve my thigh here, the right one that's moving right now, pushing his leg that way. Now I'm going to make my final hip switch, cutting back, releasing myself from his legs, and moving into the side control. So at speed, this looks like okay, our next passing situation is against the ground at Kanabasami. We're going to employ a couple things here. We're going to employ good base, we're going to employ a frame, and we're going to employ a sprawl. There's actually going to be a little bit of lever work in here. We'll go into a little bit more detail in a second. But ideally, when I find myself in this position, I want to frame against my partner's hip or against my partner's armpit. Usually, he's not going to have his hands right against his body because that would allow me to come in and grab his head. So his hands are going to be up enough that I can post right in his armpit here, and I'm going to base far enough away from him that I can frame directly from my hand to my elbow against his hip in this fashion. The more I'm able to turn him this way, the more I'm going to be able to activate my sprawl. However, as long as he's doing a good job of pushing me back and driving this knee up, my sprawl is not going to work unless I have a size advantage. So I want to make sure that I'm going to take this leg, and again, this is why I have to have good base and a good frame. I'm going to take my left leg, let's turn a little bit here. I'm going to take my left leg and I'm going to hook behind, extending his leg. Now I'm going to initiate my sprawl. This should allow me to pummel my underhook, pummel over top of this leg, and either pass to this side or move into what's somebody will call the side smash, twisted mount, and move myself into a mount position. Let's go through that again. Find myself here. I do not shift my weight back. I'm going to get hip shoveled immediately. Set my hand in his armpit, or I can set my hand against his hip, framing him out this way. It's going to prevent him from being able to shift my weight to the other side. I don't overcommit too far, because then he's going to do that hip clamp type motion that we saw in earlier volumes. So, I either frame out the hip, or I frame out the armpit. I set my base, and I take my foot, my windshield wiper over, and I try to unhook this as much as I can. You don't have to unhook it all the way, just enough that you can now drive forward and sprawl and start to windshield wiper over top of the legs and finish your passing either to the side or controlling these levers, moving directly into the mount. All right, let's get this movement again from a different angle. I'm setting my frame, checking his armpit, checking his hip with my elbow, or directly checking his hip. I set my base far enough away that my weight is shifted past him. I'm not putting any of my weight on him. I'm going to get immediately hip shoveled and tangled into the 411. So keep my weight far, keep good frames, windshield wiper my leg, extend. Now I can start to drop down again. If my frame is on his hip, I'll use my head. If my frame is in his armpit, I may also use my head. Find the underhook, sprawl, 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 driving my leg back. Windshield wiper over top, find the windshield wiper here, crawl into the mount with a good underhook, hopefully, so that I can attack an armbar from there. All right, we have another passing scenario for you. Although this actually is a scenario where you've already passed the guard, although you're in a position where, especially, again, in no-gi, since that's what we're doing here, this is a very precarious position that I don't recommend you use very often as a guard passer because of the potential for leg entanglements. But if you find yourself here and you momentarily are under threat, we want to be able to move into a little bit of a different style of passing. So if I find myself with what we referred to as the superficial pass earlier, again, I was specifically referring to stepping over, which I would personally never do. But if I did, however, manage to get myself here, and my partner's going to start to invert and get to his leg entanglements, either the 50-50 or the 411, which he just did, yeah, or the 50-50 there. There's a simple way to stop this. Let's kind of rewind for a second here. When I get here, the issue is the fact that I'm trying to obey sort of the rules of good jiu-jitsu, which is keep myself in alignment, keep myself in good base. But because of the way that my base is working, by widening out, I'm creating a space underneath me for my partner to invert and get his legs in here. Right? So I want to prevent that. And the way I'm going to do it, and as with a lot of little things that I've picked up from Kayotero over the years, it's an incredibly effective way to pass the guard. I use this motion with my passing all over the damn place. It's basically, because I'm Canadian, we call this goalie passing. We're basically using our knees and our shins to shield against something that our partner is doing from their guard to disrupt their guard maintenance or attack positions so that I can move into my passing. So when I get here, so let's just ignore this for a second. So when I get here, I'm trying to move to knee right. As my partner starts to invert, I'm going to bring my knees together. This is making that space underneath me disappear. All right, so once I've done this, I'm going to be able to do that duck under style of passing that we were going over before as a transition into our leg entanglements. But in this case, I'm using it to pass against leg entanglements. So once again, even if he gets his arm under here for a second, as soon as I recognize this inversion, I'm just going to bring my knees together. Even if I don't pass the guard, worst case scenario, if I don't pass the guard with that transition, worst case scenario, I'll be able to push him away, end up here. He may re-guard, he may move himself into a more favorable position, but he's certainly not going to immediately leg entangle me and start attacking the reverse heel hook. So anytime I find myself here, I'm just going to drop my knees down. I now have two levers that I can access, lever to the hip here, lever to the hip here, and I'm just going to cut my knees across and windshield wiper with that duck under into side control on the far side.
So kind of just like with a goalie, where as the opponent, I'm kind of looking to score through that 5-hole by that utilizing that space. You're shutting that down.
Exactly. If you've ever watched the NHL, you've seen this motion happen. That's my 5-hole. Try to make sure you can't go through there. So as you invert, I take away the 5-hole and I make a highlight reel save. All right, we're going to go through a really cool scenario against a pretty dynamic entry. It's flying scissors, and there are a couple ways that this entry can go. So I just want to explain that. The version that we're doing is against the flying scissors, where you either get knocked backward or you're able to prevent the other person from rolling you forward. Again, Riley Bodicombe has some great stuff. The way he teaches it, if I can get Rory to demonstrate, go to this side. The way he teaches the entry is ideally, he's not going to take me backwards. If he does it this way, I won't be able to do the passing sequence, but just so you're aware, so if he grabs the back of my head here, and he posts his hand, and he enters, he's gonna pull me onto him and roll me forward. It's very difficult for me to do that sequence because he's controlling my posture, and he's controlling the end of the lever. If that entry is performed correctly, this passing sequence will not be available. However, either because I recognize that the entry is coming and I'm able to fix my posture, or some people are just not going to be good enough at the entry to perform the roll. They're going to try to knock you backwards. You are going to have an opportunity to leg pummel into the leg drag. So if Rory's gripping my posture and he's shooting in, and I'm able to fix my posture in this moment where he's not able to pull me over, we are going to end up falling backwards. Now in this moment, before he's able to get a good grip on my leg, let's just go again, I'm going to be able to pummel my leg. So I kind of have to do it as I'm falling. I can't do it afterwards. So again, Rory starts to hit the entry. As I fall backwards, I'm shifting my legs this way, pummeling, and extending to come up into the leg drag. It's really hard to do this slow because we're in midair. Back, I pummel my leg in immediately, catching the inside, extending away, pummel my leg in here, come up into the leg drag, and there's your leg pummeling to leg drag from the flying scissors or Kanabasami takedown. Pretty flashy. It's going to take you some practice. It's going to take you some timing, but it's a fun one, and it's It's good to sometimes take a little bit of time from being as serious as I obviously am, or as serious as a man can be, wearing an Army of Darkness rash guard. And we like to have fun with our jiu-jitsu, so this is a great fun takedown to play with and a great fun counter to that takedown that allows you to pass the guard.